We are recording.
Oh, geez. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Self-Care Sunday podcast. We are your hosts, Shannon and Kyle. I'm Shannon. I'm a graduate student in the mental health counseling program at SUNY Oswego. I attended Oswego for undergrad as well, and I wanted to start this podcast in an effort to give back to the campus community that has given me so much over the years.
So my name is Kyle Zintars. I am a counselor at the SUNY Oswego Counseling Center. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in New York State, and I just started on the campus last fall. I'm a SUNY Oswego alum, so I've been around for a while, and I also want to give back to the community because I know what the struggle is like being a student sometimes, and this is a weird time.
This is a weird time, and I think that's like the best part about doing this podcast. I think everyone can use a little help around here. So the purpose of this podcast series is to provide a resource for college students, traditional age college students, to use in stress management and self-discovery. We're hoping that this podcast will serve as a helpful building block for students who are struggling to find what fits in their self-care routine. Just a disclaimer, this podcast is not intended to be used in place of therapy, so if any activities or information from this podcast elicit a strong emotional response, please seek counseling by reaching out to the Counseling Services Center or your local mental health provider.
Yeah, and we will put resources in the description of this, and we'll list them kind of at the end of the podcast as well. So welcome to our first episode. We're both somewhat nervous and trying to figure this out together. But today we'll be talking a lot about homesickness and adjusting to college life, because we know a lot of you are new to this experience, and we just want you to have some discussion, resources, just kind of hear from people who've been through it, what it's like, and then what can help you through it.
Oh, we've been through it.
Yes, we have. We'll actually talk more about our personal experiences with this later. So I feel like it's a good place to at least start off with things and just defining what homesickness is.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess to put it simply, homesickness is the feeling you experience when you're in a totally new place. You're maybe away from friends and family, any kind of familiarity that you had in high school or previously. So you're just feeling like maybe out of place, maybe a little bit lonely, and maybe some of that self-doubt is coming in. Like we're trying to figure out, like, do we belong here? So oftentimes this has been compared to a grief experience because in some ways we're losing everything that we knew before college. We're becoming this new person. We're in this totally new environment. And especially for that feeling of, distance or insecurity to arise in this, it makes sense. Everything's new and fresh. So sometimes we experience homesickness because everything's changed. We're just trying to adapt to it. So if you feel like you've lost your routine, your familiarity with things, and it's stabilizing, it doesn't make you feel so great. That's pretty common. I think we all go through that. I definitely remember that experience. So we'll talk about how to alleviate that as we go.
So in terms of experiencing homesickness, which I think you're completely right, it is very difficult, and like change is so hard to adjust to, but change is a great thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But experiencing homesickness, almost everyone experiences homesickness at least at some point in their life, but it's not always as simple as going somewhere new and then immediately missing home. Some students might find that they're adjusting really well, while others can feel an immediate sense of homesickness.
Definitely. Actually, there's a UCLA study that was done where they surveyed 18,000 students, and they found that 71% of first-year students experienced homesickness to some degree. So, I mean, that's a pretty high number. I think, if anything, know that you're not alone in this. Even if other people feel like they're well-adjusted, they're putting on kind of like this image that they're well-adjusted, feeling comfortable. I think a lot of people struggle with this silently. So I did want to highlight that there are these different levels of homesickness. It can range anywhere from just feeling like, I miss my family, I wish I was home for this event, to more overwhelming sense of isolation or worry, fear, sadness. All that stuff can be more elevated during this time.
Yeah. So to talk a little bit about my experiences with homesickness, When I first moved into my residence hall during undergrad, I was thrilled. I had been really wanting to get started and to reconnect with friends that I made at orientation, which I did. I actually was pretty well connected very quickly because I am a pretty social person, a social butterfly, if you will. Look at her go. But it wasn't until about a month into the semester that I realized I wasn't doing as well as I had thought. Um, I really missed my sister and felt really alone on my birthday, which was a few weeks ago. um, but since it was the beginning of the semester, I didn't really have a ton of good or close friends yet. I had just made a lot of like not superficial connections, but just those mini connections that start to develop and grow into friendships. They weren't fully forming into friendships yet. They were still in that social butterfly cocoon.
Mhm.
um, but the sense of homesickness really just seemed to smack me in the face right at that moment. And I just was so overwhelmed with emotion because I didn't realize I was homesick. And then I was just hanging out with my friends and very suddenly felt isolated within a group of people. And all I wanted to do was just go home and hug my sister.
Mm, definitely. Oh, I remember those feelings too of just wanting to like, I don't know, be around the people that I could just be myself and be free and not have to worry so much about as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. It can be hard. I think like coming to campus for me, I mean, I had the luxury of knowing someone when I came here, and that was really helpful for me to branch out. And I think for the people that I know struggle the most is you're coming into this environment, you don't know anybody. You're trying to figure yourself out and meet these people who you have no idea anything about, no way to connect with them other than just like the surface stuff. And I think a lot of people experience that worry like, are these people judging me? Do they secretly not like me?
Oh, God, that's the worst.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to figure out because we're, like, learning to read all of these unfamiliar people who just kind of do things differently than we're used to. So I feel like sometimes it makes it a little more challenging, to get to a level of comfort. It was always nice at times to just go on walks and listen to music for myself, like, that allowed me to just get familiar with the campus. I didn't feel the pressure to necessarily have to connect with people, but I also just randomly met people doing that. So, playing pool out in the lobby or something, or
Oh,
um,
pool. So popular. Everyone plays pool.
yes, yes. Oh, I met so many people that way.
Yeah, me too.
um, yeah, it's so funny. I don't know. I think just to kind of normalize that experience, I remember meeting so many people and being like, "Oh, this person might be my friend for like a long time while I'm here." And then 2 weeks later, I wasn't talking to them anymore because they were off doing something else and I was off doing something else. So those kind of changes happen so frequently until you find the people that you really want to be around.
Mhm.
So if you are struggling to find those people, if you're feeling like your friend group isn't ideal for you, that's okay. There are a lot more people around. So I think it's helpful sometimes to just have the knowledge, the ability to maybe just kind of, I don't know, mess around a little bit, see what you can do, look for new openings, new opportunities for people, and just know that everybody's secretly struggling with this. So even if they are like, I have my friend group, they might not have their friend group in 2 weeks. That could change. So you're never locked out of opportunities.
Something that you had said, I really would like to circle back to about
Mhm.
forming these connections and thinking like, oh, this person's going to be my friend for a really long time. Like, realistically, they might not be your friend, like you said, for like in the next 2 weeks. And I think that's really hard to deal with when you are feeling homesick
Mhm.
because you're seeking to find these personal
Yeah.
connections that are permanent and you make friends who help you feel like this is your home away from home.
Yeah.
Um, and then this also sometimes leads to you sticking with people who you don't actually really like. Like you might be friends with them, um, and then figure out like, oh, these people aren't really my people. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Oh, yes. I
Um,
definitely know that feeling.
yeah, and it's not a great feeling, but I think it's all part of the process. So when you are homesick, it's important to realize yes, I need to go out and make connections with people and get to know everyone, but everyone that I get to know, I might not like.
Yep.
So don't force yourself to stick with people who you feel a little off with. Just
Yes.
because they're there and you're not alone doesn't mean that that's the best group for you.
Yes. Oh, so I feel like I've had this conversation with so many freshmen and sophomores, especially, but they're scared to leave the group that they found, even though they don't feel comfortable with that group or they don't feel like respected or treated well, because they're worried no one else will take them as into their friend group. Which I do think I don't know. I went through that too, just finding my place in someone's group, but none of them are really as formed as everybody thinks they are. I think in high school, we're kind of used to those circles. Like we know who hangs out with who. But at college, it changes so often that just because you see these people hanging out together, they might know other people in different circles who have, there's just so many opportunities. And I think finding opportunities to like attend clubs or organization meetings, just putting yourself in situations where you can encounter new people, I think it helps us feel a little bit more free to explore and not
Absolutely.
like we have to settle for the first people who give us attention or make us feel okay.
Yeah, don't settle.
Yeah.
Who needs that? Um, I like what you said about circles. That reminds me of a point that I wanted to make. Like in high school, you might have a more defined circle, but college is a lot more complicated than high school in many different ways. So the circle turns into more of a mandala. So
Mm.
there's like maybe a core circle, but inside there's so many different miniature connections that branch into other connections, and it's all crazy and beautiful.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's well said. When I really think about my time, I remember having like the friend circle of people who lived in my hall or my like wing of my res hall. Then I had my friends who were in like this writing group that I was a part of. Then I had my friends who I worked with at the gym. There's just all of these people who, I mean, rarely overlap. I would just kind of hop around in those circles, and it didn't mean that I was any less connected to them. Um, it's nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So let's move on to talking about some positive coping mechanisms and some DIY interventions. So these are really things that you, the listeners, hope you're out there, can do on your own, or even recommend a friend to do with you, to really kind of get things going in terms of self-care, and understanding more about yourself, because the more you learn about yourself away from your family system at home, the more autonomous you can become and the more individualized you might feel in terms of making those social connections that really just fit with what you need.
Mhm.
So firstly, there's a self-care plan. This is something that I like to do with clients, typically at the beginning of a semester and at the end of a semester. So this could include things that you used to do but haven't had a chance to do in a while. Like for me, I used to meditate every day, and then I fell out of that habit for a while just because things were so crazy, and everything is crazy right now. So I finally started to incorporate that back into my self-care routine, and it's been amazing. I can't even explain how much
Mhm.
it's done for my mental health. Um, so things you used to do but haven't had a chance to do them in a while. And then also things you've always wanted to try. So I had tried embroidery once before when I was really young. But then over the summer, I was needing some stuff to do, and I really have just been thinking about embroidery, really wanted to try it out. It's cool, it's interesting. I'm interesting like that. So that's something I had wanted to really get into, and I did it. So that's like a mini accomplishment in itself, is starting a
Yeah.
project you've always wanted to do. And
Mhm.
then something so mindful as embroidery is like, that's got so many benefits on its own.
Definitely.
Um, and then it could also include your basic needs like hygiene, making sure you're drinking enough water, stuff like that. Um, and then I also like to include some short-term goals. So goals that you could achieve within the next 1 to 2 weeks, because this provides you with a sense of accomplishment. Depending on how many goals you have, say you have 3 goals, then they're probably easy to attain and you'll accomplish them within 1 to 2 weeks or whatever time frame you set for yourself. So it's like feeling accomplished and feeling like you're doing positive things for yourself in a new place helps it feel more like home. And then lastly, I would include some positive quotes or like daily affirmations that I would want to say to myself, because they just help you build your confidence and keep you going.
Mhm.
So that's a self-care plan. Kyle, do you have anything that you would add to that self-care plan?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like those kind of reminders to ourselves of just like, I don't know, what do we need to be reminded of at certain times? Like whether it's just to be nicer to ourselves, to like allow us to feel kind to ourselves through difficult times, like just giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt. Like this is a rough time and we're adjusting to it. So anything that we're doing that we feel good about, make that special, make that meaningful. But also know like there are times where you might not want to go out, and that's okay. You can just sit in your room and just enjoy your space, whether that's listening to music or putting on a movie that you enjoy. Just kind of finding ways to balance things. So recharge when you need to, but also like get out and try new things when you can.
Yeah. And especially right now, try new things that are COVID friendly.
Yes, COVID friendly. Wash your hands, wear your masks.
Yes, please. That's part of the self-care plan too.
Yes.
Um, and then something you had just said about, shoot, I just had a thought and then it ran away from me. Oh,
I hate that.
I remembered. Things that you need to be reminded of. um, so when I first came to college, I had like all of my things that I needed to pack with me, but it's interesting because you don't really think of the things you do every day or that you need to use every day. So my parents dropped me off. I was here, I was moving in, and then I realized I didn't have any cotton balls or Q-tips or tissues. And I was like, oh, I need those. And those are just like basic things that I kind of, in a sense, just took for granted because they were just always readily available at my house.
Mm.
Um, but I needed them and I didn't have them. So I was like, oh, shoot. That's like such a simple thing. I can't believe I didn't think of that. So
Mm.
it's kind of like related to the self-care plan. It's a simple thing that you might need to do that you don't always think of because it's just something that you've always had available.
Mhm. Yep, definitely. And I think just don't underestimate the power of those things because they can change a lot about the way we feel, even if they seem so simple or common sense, like drinking enough water, but we will feel better. So
Yeah.
if you pay attention to that stuff, I think you'll notice the little things that slip when we're stressed or adjusting that we're not keeping track of.
And then the second intervention that I have that we have for you, is a poem. So Kyle and I really like poetry. Anyone who knows
Mhm.
us would know that.
Yes.
So I thought of an idea for a poem intervention. The prompt is to write a poem about what home feels like. Um, my reasoning for choosing this prompt is to really get you to consider what home feels like, or what your, maybe if you don't have a great home life, what your ideal home would feel like. Um, because it can really bring out some of the values and the things that you need through your writing, and you might not even recognize it. Or you might not be consciously aware of something that does make you feel comfortable. But if it pops up in your poem, it's probably important to you and your sense of home. So part of my poem, I won't read the whole thing, but I had put mountaintops and a place so serene. So I really value tranquility and peacefulness, but also the mountaintops. I grew up in the Catskill region, so I would always see mountains on drives to places. I would go on hikes, stuff like that. So something that helps me feel more at home is to have mountain-esque art around because I can still see them. There aren't very
Hmm.
many mountains around here.
Yeah.
um, there are some, but they're not as readily available to my eyes as the
Yeah.
Catskills. um, so this was great for me because I wrote about mountaintops a few different times. So that prompted me to then do some artwork. And I did some watercolor mountains. I had made some artwork for the counseling center last year with mountains on it. So
Mhm.
mountains kind of have been popping up now that I'm noticing them.
Mhm.
Um, so that's just the point of this poem, is to really pick out things that help you feel at home and then critically examine how these things are present in your life. And if they're not, incorporate them somehow.
Definitely. I can relate to that so much, though. I think when I so when I came to the school, I was really interested in writing, and I was taking like a poetry class, like an intro to poetry class. Obviously, my love for poetry. So in doing that, though, I found myself writing a lot more about water, which I don't have from where I'm from Albany, New York, and we have like little pieces of water here and there, but we don't have a Great Lake to go to. So I think as I became more connected with the campus, I found that that became more prevalent in my writing, and that helped me to connect to this place in a different way. Um, it's a wonderful space to go to and just like sit by the water, listen to the waves, throw some rocks. Just a good place to be, and I think that helped me to connect to this place. And I think that, I mean, that leads into the next point that I wanted to talk about, which is this power of connection. You had mentioned earlier, this sense of kind of like building home within yourself, right? Like this is your new home. Um, and I think as we do that, we realize that home is something we carry with us. So even if we're not in our original, town state of origin, we still have all of the stuff that has meant something to us with us. And the same is said about this environment too. We are finding a way to put our roots down here for as long as we're going to be here. And it doesn't make it better or worse. It just means that it's new and fresh. So I think as we build our connection to ourselves inwardly, we start to lay our roots down in the space around us. And there's something like really nice about that. There, there's going to be a lot of differences from maybe where you're coming from to here, but it doesn't mean that it's, I don't know, like it's not possible to find those things that matter. There's so much to appreciate. And, as you meet new people safely in these circumstances or explore the campus, the physical world of the campus, I think you'll start to see that there are things that you love and appreciate. And that becomes part of our connection to things. So it could be the little space that you find outside of one of the academic buildings. It's like your own private like getaway. That stuff is really important. I always found those around campus walking around. So, if you can do it safely, just explore and find the little places that you enjoy being. If you need to get away, go there. Things like that. I think that all helps us to make our roots and feel more connected to this place. Alongside, if making connections. I know everything's virtual right now, but clubs and organizations are still holding meetings, and it's tough to meet people on Zoom, but I think it's also allowing yourself to try something new that might be a little uncomfortable. Maybe there's like a really strong friendship waiting for you at that meeting. You just don't know it for sure. So I think giving yourself the opportunity to take those challenges, maybe try something new, maybe test out a new friendship. I think that stuff helps us to feel more grounded and settled here.
I think that's absolutely true. And what you said about finding those little areas outside of the academic buildings is super true for a lot of people. Um, I always just caution people to find more than one spot in the event that
Yes.
someone else also finds your spot.
Yes. Oh, I know. Second floor, Mahar, my computer lab. I claimed it clearly, but no one was ever in there until the one day that two people were in there, and I was like, "Oh no, where do I go now?"
I have nowhere to go. I have so many places to go.
Yes, yes, so many.
So
Oh,
I'd like to do a quick little role play activity where I am someone who's feeling homesick. And then, Kyle, I want you to ask me why homesickness is a good thing.
okay, sounds good.
So, hi, Kyle. I'm new here. I'm a first year student. I'm from the city, and I don't really feel like I belong here. I'm feeling really homesick, and I just don't want to feel homesick anymore.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to feel. I guess I'm wondering, is homesickness a good thing?
Huh. Well, I mean, I I could be. I guess if you're feeling homesick like I am, it would probably mean that home is important to you. Um, yeah, I guess homesickness is a good thing in some ways. I just kind of wish I wasn't feeling it right now.
Mm,
Hmm. And
definitely.
see, so that was like a really very short point that I wanted to make is that if you are feeling homesick, it means that you have connections to people or places that are strong and comforting. So these connections serve as part of your life, your support system, and your worldview. So this is proof that you are connected to others even when you feel alone. So that little role play thing, obviously, maybe a first year student might not immediately say why homesickness is a good thing,
Yeah.
but they might. Um, so just the proof that you're connected to others, even when you feel alone, is the driving point that I would like to put in this positive reframe of homesickness, because you do often feel very alone, and being homesick can lead to other feelings that are not so great, and withdrawal from others, some isolation. But always remember, you're feeling a certain type of way for a reason. So what is that reason, and how can that be a positive thing?
Definitely. I like the idea of kind of reframing that because we do tend to see homesickness as like, oh, it feels terrible. But on the flip end, it does mean that we're missing something or that something is really important to us that we're away from. And I can't help but think because I worked with children in the community for a long time, and the idea of like attachment, like we need a safe place to fall back on so
Mhm.
that we can extend ourselves out further. And
Mhm.
always love the contrast of that because when we have something that we can return to recharge, to feel better, then we can put ourselves out a little bit further each time until we feel more comfortable and our circle expands. It's wonderful. So we have some do's and don'ts when we're thinking about homesickness for you, and some of these might apply to you. We're going to try and balance out the things that you should do, and maybe the things that might get in the way of you feeling more connected. So I know we were just talking about having connection to whatever it was that we're coming from. So that could be family or friends, home, back home, wherever that is. So it is important to stay connected to those people. Having the support to talk through all the change, to know that you have people who are listening, who know who you are outside of this new experience, it helps us to feel a little bit better. There is a line for that, though. If you are spending more time talking with people back home, if you're taking more trips back home, and you're not allowing yourself to find comfort or make space for this new experience and new people in your life, sometimes it makes it feel like harder to be here. You're not giving yourself the opportunity to feel more comfortable or to find some sense of balance. So I do recommend not calling family members like every single day. give yourself some space to maybe talk to someone new, maybe try something out, maybe attend like a Let's Talk on campus, which we'll talk about more. But just give yourself those spaces to feel like you're not missing out on stuff here as well.
Definitely. Another do would be something we've already discussed is do get out and explore campus. Finding different areas on campus is crucial to just creating a sense of home away from home. Us Oswego students are so fortunate to live right on the beautiful Lake Ontario. Um, it just provides us with so much beauty, the sounds of the waves, those unbeatable sunsets, and plenty of rocks to skip across the surf.
Yes.
Um, the lake is a great sounding board for any frustrations you might have as well. Um, I love the lake, and just recently during the whole quarantine situation in March, I was realizing, I've been on campus for a while and I don't come out to the lake often enough, and it's right there. So take
Mhm.
advantage of it. Um,
Definitely.
on the flip side, please don't just stay in your room. It's really important to get out and explore so that you don't feel so isolated and alone. Practice safe social distancing when engaging with others, but try to think of new activities to do. And if you're stuck on that, connect with your RA or an RA in the building, or maybe someone in your building that you know. Um, just connect with others and try to get out there.
Mhm. Yes. And I know I mentioned this previously as well, but clubs and organizations, there are so many that are active and always looking for new members to join. If you have an interest, I can almost guarantee there is a club or organization for them. Like they they really have found ways to open themselves up to new experiences and new people and share interests. So clubs for video gaming, if you're into video games, there's a Harry Potter club. There's Active Minds. If you're passionate about mental health, there's just so many opportunities for connecting with people. So if it's your first time and you're nervous, maybe attend with a friend who you've met. See if they'll just come along with you virtually to the meeting, or uh, just go and sit in. You don't have to say anything at first. You can just kind of feel it out. See if that's a place where you'd like to be. Um, and a simple one that I think people are intimidated by is connecting with your classmates. I know it's like a little bit more challenging on Zoom, but if there's someone that you feel more comfortable like asking about a homework assignment, that's always a good way to like an icebreaker. Like, hey, I wrote this down. I just want to make sure I got this right. Is this did I understand this right? Um, that's a good friendly way to start a conversation with somebody who you might want to talk to in your class. Get some support in that so you're not feeling so alone as well. Um, and then I know everything's virtual right now. So attending those can be uncomfortable just because you're not sure what they'll be like. There are a lot of them that don't have obligations to attend visually, right? Like for ours, especially at the counseling center, we've been trying to get people to attend by not making it an obligation to appear on camera. So you don't have to show yourself. You don't even have to participate. You can just sit and listen. You can talk in the chat if that's more comfortable, but attend the ones that do make you feel a little bit more safe and comfortable as you're testing this out. We're definitely trying to open up more programs and workshops for people to come together and find some extra support while doing this. So you're not alone. And I think we're just trying to find ways to help connect people who are feeling alone so that they feel less alone. So connect in your res hall as well. There might be opportunities where you're living, where maybe they're getting some people together to do something or talk about things.
For sure. And then kind of to wrap it up with the do's and don'ts, do not rely solely on what is comfortable. Take that risk to join a club. I know earlier I had mentioned finding ways to enhance your sense of individualism, but some of us come from more collectivist cultures as well. So finding those groups on campus that share common interests or even common values and beliefs is
Mhm.
really important, especially in terms of our folks who come from collectivistic cultures. Um, so take that risk, join that club. While uncomfortable at first, these experiences are often doorways to new opportunities and growth.
Mhm.
So we're just
I
about the end, or did you have something to add? Oh,
Oh,
I
I
thought
don't think I had anything else.
I thought I
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
you. I was like,
I was just agreeing.
well, thanks for agreeing. So anyway, ending up this little podcast here, we're going to wrap up with some positive quotes and some resources. So I chose some positive quotes that have really been speaking to me lately. The first being, nothing good ever comes from your comfort zone. And I think based on everything we've discussed in this podcast, you can tell I'm a strong advocate of this belief. Nothing good ever comes from your comfort zone. Don't stay in there. Go back there when you need to recharge, as Kyle said earlier. Recharging is crucial to then being able to go branch out more. And then the second quote that I had chose was, "It is a kindness that the mind can go where it wishes." I chose this one for my friends who are out there really, really, really missing home and just wanting to be able to go and be back home, but you can't leave campus for some reason, or you want to stick it out. You can always use your mind to travel to a safe place, and that might just be your home.
Mhm, mhm, definitely. Yeah. So for this, I chose a quote from the movie Garden State, which I watched my freshman year of college. um, the quote goes, "It's like you get homesick for a place that doesn't exist." And I think in some ways that's scary, that things change, that things are different, and that what you've known about home will be different because you've made a different change in your life. It's sometimes scary to feel like that's doable, like we can handle that. But it goes back to what we've been stressing all along. A lot of what home ends up being is something we create for ourselves when we have the space and opportunity to do so. Just because you're in transition and change right now, it doesn't mean that things aren't going to get better. You have the opportunity to meet new people, to find your place, and to really pave out a path that matters to you. So I think this quote is sometimes sad and scary, but I also think that there's a lot of hope and potential that comes from those moments when we realize we have more say in our lives than we give ourselves credit for. You could meet some really amazing people on this campus, attending a club or an organization, in a random conversation about a class. Those kind of moments happen quite often. You just have to be open to them in some ways. So that's my quote. And I guess I just want to encourage, I'm someone who loves creativity. We talked about our love for poetry already, but any kind of creativity for change, I think, is helpful. I remember starting school and just keeping a notebook of poems before I even started taking classes in them, because that was my space to go to be creative and check in with myself. But also making music was really helpful for me during that time. So if you have those kind of creative things that you like doing, we're opening the door here. If you want to share your artwork for us to maybe share with other people, what homesickness is like, or just like I don't know, what are you creating in this time that's making you feel a little bit better, helping you express what's important to you. So you can send that to our email. We'll put that link in the description here. So you can send that to us. And if you want to share it publicly, you can. If you just want to share it with us, just let us know. Whatever is best for you, I'm cool with.
Yes, we will accept your artwork via email. We're also going to try to start using a hashtag on Instagram. I believe it was Self-Care Sun Pod because Self-Care Sunday is taken. But whatever you feel comfortable sharing, please feel free to share with us. And you can always let us know, like, I want this to be anonymous, or you can give me credit. Totally up to you.
Yeah, that would be
So
great.
next week, just briefly, next week, next episode. I don't know why I always say next week, because all the podcasts I listen to are on a weekly
So
basis.
next week, yeah.
Next episode, we'll be talking about work-life balance. So just to put that on your radar, that's something that we'll talk about. If you have any suggestions for things that you'd like us to cover, or you'd like us to put information out there in the future, you can also comment below or email us that as well.
That would be great. And if you haven't checked out our website for the counseling center on campus, feel free. It's a good place to come and chat with somebody if you're just feeling like you can't make a connection. I mentioned our Let's Talk program. You don't need an appointment. You can just drop by. So check out the website. I'll put that in the description as well. But if you're looking for counseling services, we have openings. We're here. We're virtual, but we're here.
Thanks for listening. That's it. Share this with your friends or with people who you think would benefit from this, and stay tuned for our next episode, which is not next week, but next month.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we'll be here. Well, hopefully with some good tips and tricks for getting you through this tough time. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.